The cheater's gift. In my line of work, integrity is everything. As a structural architect, I spend my days obsessing over load-bearing walls, the PSI of concrete, and the precise tension of steel cables. I know that a building doesn't collapse all at once, it happens in stages. First, there's a hairline fracture in the foundation, something invisible to the naked eye. Then, moisture seeps in. The rebar rusts. The weight shifts. By the time the drywall starts to crack, the building has been dying for years. I didn't realize that my relationship with Chloe was a condemned building. To the outside world, we were the gold standard. I was the rising star at Sterling & Associates, and Chloe was a high-powered PR executive who could charm the scales off a snake. We lived in a glass-walled penthouse in the city, the kind of place that looks like a museum of success. Our wedding was set for June, a black tie affair at a historic estate. We were the it couple, but, as I've learned, the most beautiful facades often hide the most dangerous rot. The first fracture appeared on a Tuesday in late November. I was in my home office, finishing the blueprints for a new library in Hartford. My phone buzzed on the mahogany desk. It was a fraud alert from my premium credit card. Transaction, $25,000. Merchant, Vandergriff and Kober Jewelers. My heart did a strange double thump, not out of suspicion, but out of a misplaced sense of warmth. Vandergriff's was the place where we had picked out her engagement ring. I assumed she was buying my wedding gift, perhaps the vintage watch I'd mentioned months ago. I felt a surge of guilt for even looking at the alert. I swiped it away, smiled to myself, and went back to my blueprints. I thought I was looking at a gift. I didn't realize I was looking at the price tag of my own replacement. But as the days went by, the math didn't add up. Chloe began working late on a new account, a fitness brand headed by a man named Julian. She described him as intense and needy, someone who required constant hand-holding for his PR strategy. Suddenly, our quiet evenings were replaced by her hushed phone calls in the hallway and the scent of a perfume I hadn't bought her. Architects are trained to look for discrepancies. If a beam is off by half an inch, you don't ignore it, you find out why. I decided to do a structural audit of our life. I didn't want to find anything. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to feel like a paranoid fool so I could apologize and take her on a pre-wedding honeymoon. I started with the credit card statements. The $25,000 charge wasn't for a vintage watch.
Yes, Mr. Sterling, the clerk said, her voice dripping with the faux sincerity of high-end retail. The rose gold Patek Philippe was picked up by Ms. Whitford herself. It's a stunning piece. I'm sure the recipient was thrilled.
I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't own a Patek Philippe. I checked the emergency card I'd given her for wedding expenses, the one backed by my personal line of credit. The fracture turned into a canyon. $200 at a boutique hotel in Vermont, $450 at a steakhouse in Brooklyn. $200 at a men's luxury apparel store. I sat in my office in the dark, the blue light of the laptop screen reflecting in my eyes. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being commodified. She was using my career, my long hours, my stress, my late-night design sessions as a venture capital fund for her affair. She was buying another man's love with my life's work.
You sure you want to see this, kid?
It wasn't just photos, it was a narrative of a second life. There were photos of Chloe and Julian, a man 10 years younger, a fitness instructor with a chiseled jaw and the vacant eyes of a predator, on the balcony of a cabin in Vermont. My cabin, the one I'd bought as a surprise for our first anniversary. In one photo, Julian was wearing the rose gold watch. The sunlight hit the glass, reflecting a blinding light that felt like a physical strike to my chest. Chloe was laughing. It was the same laugh she gave me when I proposed. It was a client-facing laugh. I realized then that I had never really known Chloe Whitford. I had only known the PR version of her, the one she designed to secure a comfortable life. Most people, when faced with this kind of betrayal, would scream. They would throw suitcases out the window or empty the bank accounts. But I am an architect. I don't destroy, I reconstruct. I spent the first 2 weeks of December in a state of functional shock. I sat across from her at breakfast, watching her spread jam on her toast, listening to her talk about the stress of the Julian account.
"He's so demanding, Mark," she'd say, scrolling through her phone. "I might have to go to a weekend retreat in the city just to finalize the media buy." "Of course," I'd reply, my voice steady. "Do whatever you need to do, Chloe. I trust your judgment."
I was building a trap, and I needed it to be as elegant as a Japanese bridge. I consulted with my therapist, Dr. Aris. I told him I felt like I was living with a ghost.
"You're mourning a person who never existed, Mark," he said. "The question isn't how she could do this. The question is, who are you going to be when the truth comes out?"
I decided I was going to be the man who delivered the truth in a way that couldn't be ignored, denied, or spun by a PR professional. Chloe's parents, the Whitfords, were the key. They were Old Money, Connecticut. The judge, her father, was a man who valued character above all else. Her mother was the social gatekeeper of their county. To them, a scandal wasn't just a mistake, it was an eviction from society. I knew their annual Christmas Day brunch was the only stage big enough for the finale. It was an event attended by the elite, senators, developers, and partners at my own firm. If I confronted her at home, she would spin it. She would tell her parents I was abusive or unstable. But if I showed them the evidence in front of their own peers, there would be no PR recovery from that. I spent my evenings wrapping my gifts. I didn't just print the bank statements, I created a portfolio of betrayal. I used my high-end plotter at the office to create clear, color-coded charts of the spending. I included the PI's photos, the hotel receipts, and the GPS logs from the car. I placed them in a high-end jewelry box from Vandergrift's, the same store where she bought the watch. I wanted the box to look like a $25,000 gift. I wanted her to be excited when she opened it. Christmas morning in Connecticut was hauntingly beautiful. The Whitford estate was draped in white, the iron gates dusted with snow. As we drove up the long driveway, Chloe was in high spirits. She was wearing a cream-colored wool coat and the diamond earrings I'd given her for our engagement. "My parents are so excited to see us," she said, checking her reflection in the visor mirror. "Dad is going to ask about the wedding venue again. Just tell him it's all under control." "Everything is under control, Chloe," I said. I felt a strange sense of peace. The tension in the structure had reached its limit. The collapse was inevitable now.
"Mark, I hear the Hartford Library project is a masterpiece. You're making quite a name for yourself."
"I'm learning a lot about foundations this year, Judge," I replied. "You'd be surprised how much can be hidden underground." The gift exchange began at noon. It was a ritual. We sat in the grand library, the fire roaring in the hearth. One by one, family members exchanged tokens of appreciation. When it was Chloe's turn, she handed me a small, beautifully wrapped box.
I know how hard you've been working, Mark, she said, her voice projecting to the back of the room so everyone could hear. I wanted you to have something that reminds you of our future.
I opened it. It was a silver watch, a nice piece, maybe $500, a decoy gift designed to make her look like the doting fiancée. The guests awed and clapped. "It's perfect, Chloe," I said. I stood up. "And now I have something for you. But because this year has been so transformative, I wanted to share this gift with the whole family. Because without your support, Judge, and your guidance, I wouldn't have the clarity I have today."
What's this, Mark? It's the final audit.
Mark, what is this?
"That's the rose gold Patek Philippe you bought with my credit card," I said, my voice carrying across the library. "The one you gave to your fitness instructor, Julian. The folder the judge is holding contains the rest of the investment, the hotel rooms, the dinners, and the forged signatures on the wedding vendor contracts."
Chloe!
"I'm leaving, Chloe," I said. "The penthouse locks are being changed as we speak. The wedding is canceled, and because you used my personal line of credit for these gifts, my lawyer will be in touch regarding the $60,000 in fraudulent charges. Merry Christmas to everyone, especially to the person who is now officially single." The first thing I noticed after leaving the Whitford estate was the cold. Not the sharp, biting cold of winter, but a clean cold, like the air after a storm has passed. The kind that fills your lungs and reminds you you're still alive. I walked across the gravel driveway, each step crunching beneath my shoes, each breath forming a small cloud in the air. Behind me, the Whitford estate loomed like a courthouse after a verdict. I didn't need to hear the shouting inside to know what was happening. The truth had detonated, and the shockwave was still rippling through the room. But I didn't look back. Not once. I reached my car, opened the door, and sat in the driver's seat. For a long moment, I didn't start the engine. I just sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, feeling the weight of months lift off my shoulders. The collapse was complete, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The diner. 10 miles down the road, I pulled into a small diner, a place with flickering neon lights and a parking lot dusted with snow, the kind of place where no one knew my name and no one cared. "What can I get you, hun?" she asked. "Black coffee," I said. "And whatever you recommend." I leaned back in the booth, staring out at the snow-covered road. The world felt quieter now, simpler, honest. When the coffee arrived, I wrapped my hands around the warm mug and took a long sip. It tasted bitter, but real. For the first time in months, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing. I wasn't holding up a ceiling for someone else. I was just me. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and legal maneuvers. My lawyer, a shark in a tailored suit, handled everything with ruthless efficiency. "Because she used your personal line of credit," he explained, "this falls under financial bad faith. The prenup is airtight." Chloe tried to sue for emotional distress. She tried to claim I had humiliated her. She tried to spin the narrative. But the evidence was overwhelming. The judge's reputation was on the line. Her parents refused to support her claim. In the end, she walked away with nothing but her clothes and the debt she'd accumulated on her own cards. Julian disappeared the moment the money stopped flowing. Of course he did. People like him don't stay. When the luxury dries up, they evaporate. The Whitfords didn't speak to Chloe for nearly a year. Her mother couldn't bear the humiliation. The judge couldn't bear the evidence. In their world, reputation was everything. And Chloe had detonated hers in front of their peers. She moved out of the city, took a job at a smaller PR firm, stopped posting on social media. Her curated life had collapsed, and she didn't know how to rebuild without an audience. But this isn't her story. It never was. I took a year off from high-stakes firm work, not because I was broken, but because I needed space to breathe. I traveled, I read, I walked through cities without thinking about load-bearing walls or tensile strength. Eventually, I found myself in Greece. Standing among the ruins of the Parthenon, I felt something shift inside me. The stones were cracked, weathered, imperfect, but still standing. Still beautiful. Even the greatest structures fall. But the ideas behind them endure. One afternoon, while sketching the columns in my notebook, a woman approached me. "You're drawing the fractures," she said. I looked up. She was tall, with sun-browned skin and dark hair pulled into a loose braid. Her eyes were sharp, observant. "I'm an architect," I said. "I noticed the flaws." "I'm an archaeologist," she replied. "I noticed the truth beneath them." Her name was Elena. We talked for hours, about ruins, about history, about the stories buried beneath the earth. When I told her my story, she didn't pity me. She didn't judge me. She simply said, "Now you know what's under your own feet. That's the only way to build something that lasts." I didn't fall in love with her immediately. But I fell into honesty, into clarity, into a life that wasn't built on performance. A new foundation today. I live in a house I designed myself, not a glass penthouse, not a monument to success. A home, stone, wood, light, grounded. I'm a father now. 2 children who run through the halls with laughter that feels like sunlight. Every Christmas we sit by a fire that represents warmth, not a stage for a reveal. And sometimes when the kids are asleep and the house is quiet, I think about that Christmas day at the Whitford estate, not with anger, not with regret, with gratitude. Because the gift I gave Chloe wasn't revenge, it was a mirror. I forced her to see who she really was, and I forced myself to see who I had become, a man willing to accept a beautiful lie over an ugly truth. I don't do that anymore. The closing hook. The most expensive gift I ever gave Chloe wasn't the $25,000 watch. It was the years of my life I spent believing in a person who only saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat. Standing on that sidewalk in the cold Connecticut air, I realized something that changed me forever. You can't build a skyscraper on a foundation of lies. I didn't ruin her Christmas. I simply stopped holding up the ceiling for her. By handing her those bank statements, I wasn't just exposing her. I was evicting her from my future. Today, I don't carry the weight of her secrets. I don't look for justice in a courtroom or a confrontation. I find it in the quiet mornings with a woman who actually loves me, in the laughter of my children, in a bank account that no longer has a hole in it, in a life built on truth, not performance. And for that reason I will never seek revenge on Christmas Day again. Because when you finally value yourself, the people who tried to break you become completely irrelevant.